This is Sybert signing into Red Alert Remastered on the map North by Northwest in the top position as the Blue Allies. This is BikeRushOwnz. And in the south position, you saw him moving his MCV as the Yellow Allies. This is Sai. Alright, I have cast a series of games, a handful of matches that were just no good. And then I was searching the replay tab and I saw this, series is maybe not the correct term, but this couple of games played between Sai and BikeRush, basically one after another. And they are two of the top players on the leaderboard at the current moment, so I figured, even if it's not a formal series, why don't we take a look at these games played between these two guys and see what there is. Now, a couple of the games are definitely short, so I actually don't know how many games are totally in the series, like 5 or 6 or something. But the games are relatively short, some of them, and we're just going to take a look at how they unfold. We've got a big infantry swell coming out from BikeRush, and this actually kind of reminds me of the early games of Red Alert when people were still playing with starting units on. So you'd spawn in and you'd have a small batch of a couple of infantry, a couple of tanks that you could run around the map with. And of course, some players just use that for a little bit of scouting, maybe some defense or whatever, but then other players, well, you know, sometimes BikeRush, would indeed take those starting units that you're just given at the front of the game and go super aggressive, try and kill the other guy right out of the gate. You know, in theory, you could not build a single building, you could not train a single unit or produce anything, harvest any resources, and win the game with units, because you just take those starting units and you out-control or you take the other guy by surprise, and that's almost what that infantry swell right at the beginning reminded me of. BikeRush now going to be producing a couple of tanks, and the tanks do matter because in Red Alert so often it is about the tank spam. As you can see, BikeRush, okay, MCV cell actually, but keep in mind, 1 refinery, 2 war factories. What did we see from Sai? 2 refineries, 1 war factory. The production is slower from Sai, but also he's still got that MCV, so BikeRush is holding on to the cash influx of an MCV cell to be able to produce the additional units, even though his economy is behind that of Sai. Now Sai going to be producing some extra tanks, but he's down in numbers. It's 3 versus 5, but now it's really 3 versus 5 because he just lost one and it was super low on health. So as the reinforcements come in, Sai's losing even more. And there's actually an MCV cell from Sai. Engineer running around. It looks like it does get squished. BikeRush knows his one chance to come back is this war factory. So if BikeRush kills that, Sai is done. And that actually probably, yeah, that actually will be it for Sai. BikeRush able to take this game relatively quickly, but with some very decisive decision-making there. And again, 2 refineries first versus 2 war factories. I mean, it was refinery, then war factories, but prioritizing those units for a quick kill as opposed to getting the economy towards a more macro game. So BikeRush, sticking true to his name, rushing, not obviously with bikes, but rushing with tanks and able to win in this first match. We are going to jump into another game right now, which takes us to the map Bullseye, and you can definitely see where it gets its name. In the north, as the yellow Germany, this is Sai. And in the south, as the blue, moving his MCV, this is BikeRushOwnz. Now, why would you move your MCV? Well, you do have these gems in the middle of the map. This is a decently sized map as well. It takes a hot minute for your units to cross. So moving your MCV here into the middle, where you've got this ore, and you're closer to the gems, maybe it will be worth it. But once again, we see a difference right out of the gate between these two players. In the last game, it was BikeRush focusing on the aggression, and here it may still be BikeRush focusing on the aggression. It could be that he moved his MCV here because he wants to be closer to his opponent, but it also could be that BikeRush is focusing more on wanting to get up more money more quickly, which I guess would be like eco-boom into super aggression, or eco-booming for the purpose of aggression. He's not trying to macro necessarily, but that could be something that we see. So right out of the gate, Sai, again, with just more scouting units. You can see kind of the split he's going for on this map. And, oh, by the way, both these guys are Germany, which apparently means they do 10% more damage, but since they have the same faction, there isn't a particular advantage in that case. BikeRush, on the other hand, check out the map vision. Yeah, he's got a little bit going backwards, but much less in terms of total map awareness. He's much more clumped. He's much more focused on groups of units walking around together so that they can potentially gain an advantage. And the assumption, my assumption, would be that Sai is not going to die to any of these unit groups. He is not going to be so lax with defense or with prep that he is going to let any small groups of riflemen kill critical infrastructure or critical groups of units. That's just not who Sai is. Sai is a better player than that. But, I mean, that is definitely a case where if someone slips up, if someone makes a mistake, and you're able to slip 8 or 10 riflemen into the back of their base, you may be able to kill a power plant or two, maybe even a barracks, or you're probably not going to get a refinery. But, you know, you might even get a refinery or war factory. But, once again, double refinery, for Sai, and BikeRush, on the other hand, refinery, war factory, and double refinery for him as well. So it literally is just delayed. However, he's going straight for the gems. So once again, small differences can sometimes add up. Triple refinery now out on the field, and of course 4 harvesters in total, so one of them being produced by the war factory. Much more solid opening from the beginning for Sai, and in this case, BikeRush has delayed so much that even though he's got the additional income from the gems, he is so behind on harvesters, and it takes his harvesters so much longer to drive that it may not actually matter. It could just be that Sai has way too much stuff, and that this MCV move at the beginning of the game did not benefit BikeRush at all. I guess harvesters die a good bit faster because of the 10% damage boost, because of course harvesters can't return fire, so it's not like tanks where they'll kill each other at the same rate as they would before, because they both have the damage boost. Medium tanks are definitely in the advantage for Sai, and he's got a killing blow on this harvester. A couple of other harvesters are low on health as well, and BikeRush just may have literally nothing to stop this. He played his cards. He chose wrong in this case. The more direct move was the correct one from Sai, and now Sai going to be expanding south with a second war factory, so his production is now going to be dwarfing that of BikeRush. He's got more harvesters, he's got more refineries, he's got more working harvesters actively refining, and he's got the same number of war factories, potentially even more relatively soon. And it looks like Sai is going for the overwhelm. He is going to be able to separate out some of these tanks, kill them, shut them down one by one, as you can see, able to focus down BikeRush's tanks extremely quickly, and of course, BikeRush in this case doesn't stand a chance with the numbers. He can potentially overwhelm, but that would require Sai to give up the advantages that he has right now. And I mean, if BikeRush is able to walk across the map and just kill Sai, that would be about the only way to do it, because he's got no harvesters left, he's got no refineries, and okay, so that's the end of that game. I assume Sai wins that. I assume BikeRush, with 5 credits left, realizes that he can't finish that game. Okay, that seemed like kind of a weird spot to end it, like he still has the tanks alive. But that will do it for game number 2, so I guess if you are keeping score, which, by the way, go ahead and leave your bets in the comments. Which player are you betting on to win? Because right now, it's 1-1, baby, so things are even, and let's jump into game number 3. Which takes us to Keep Off the Grass, with a big group of jelly beans in the middle of the map in the north as the Soviets, so actually USSR, and also playing the Soviets. This is the yellow Sai, 1-1 with this guy in the bottom right-hand corner. This is a very small map, and it does get very tight around these gems. This is BikeRush. All right, infantry going to be matching in the middle of the map, and yeah, this is exactly what you tend to see, is players going to break down this wall. It seems to be most of the time the contention is this wall over here. BikeRush's forces are getting trashed, and this is, now we're going to be seeing, you know, Allies versus Soviets instead of just Soviets versus Soviets or Allies versus Allies. And in this case, I believe Sai has 10% cheaper stuff, and BikeRush has 10% more damage, is I believe the way the Germany and USSR benefits work out. BikeRush going to be able to clear out a couple of infantry units, and he's looking to kill the Harvester. He's not going to be able to get the kill on the Harvester, but he is going to be able to push it away. Now, one thing to keep in mind, this is not like some of the newer maps which are a bit more generous in terms of ore and available cash on the map. Oh my gosh, that group of infantry, they were going for that refinery. They were going for what they thought was a quick kill of critical infrastructure, and as a result, they just all died at a moment's notice. And someone's selling something off. But there isn't a whole lot of cash on this map that is easily available. So control of these gems in the middle of the map is pretty critical. It's pretty darn important for Bike Rush. And once again, Sai, you know, he was going for that refinery first kind of play, but he wasn't able to keep a hold of it. And we saw Bike Rush dropping those base defenses early on. The big swell of infantry trying to push out his opponent, that kind of stuff. And as a result, Sai has now lost control of the middle of the map. He's going to be forced to reestablish himself up here in the top left-hand corner in terms of economy, in terms of production. He is just behind. Now, Bike Rush has been focusing mostly on infantry. Yeah, this is his first war factory going down just now, so it's all been infantry up to this point, which means Sai has an advantage. There's the MCV cell for Sai, so he's going 2 harvesters, 1 refinery. 1 harvester is not actually working. He needs to get that guy back up and running. And it looks like the MCV cell from Bike Rush as well. Engineer does get squashed, and this harvester is going to be trying to run around and avoid these tanks. It is all coming down to this for these players. Sai losing too many tanks, I think, to be able to... Actually, he's got 2 more over here on the left side of the map, which means he can break down these pillboxes, and with the crushes, he can't even things up on the infantry front, so it's actually going to be 2 tanks versus 3. It looks like now with reinforcements. Bike Rush should be able to overwhelm, but reinforcements from Sai are coming in potentially. He needs to keep that engineer alive if he can. Literally, if you just use it to harm a building, that will help your cause. Buildings have to be below a certain health to be able to capture them, in Red Alert at least. Tip Dawn is a little bit different, and the rest of the Red Alert, or the rest of the Command & Conquer games are also different in that respect. But anyways, damaging a building with an engineer is also a decent route to go, and now things are in kind of an awkward stalemate. Bike Rush, I don't know if he feels like he has the strength to be able to push in and crush Sai outright, or if he's just being a little bit timid, because, of course, infantry, yes, if they go unchallenged, can do some decent damage, but now it's going to be 5 tanks versus the 6 of Bike Rush. And with the infantry, he may be able to gain some kind of advantage, but a lot of times the tanks just crush the infantry. I mean, you guys know that. You've seen it from time to time. The infantry just getting absolutely obliterated and annihilated in a moment from the tanks. And this is what he's going for. The engineer gets killed, and the tanks are going to be moving in on the war factory. Bike Rush is going for the kill, but more tanks do now pop out for Sai, and he is going to be able to hold the line right here, right now. It's heavy tanks versus medium, and Bike Rush has a handful that are very low on health. Sai going to be able to get the kill very easily on these tanks, shut everything down, and then potentially go for the kill on Bike Rush. Although Bike Rush is just going for the kill on the buildings, he's going to be able to kill the refinery, which means he may be able to win out in the long term. If Sai can't drive across the map and kill Bike Rush right here, right now, then Bike Rush can hold on, rebuild, and regrow his army. He will actually be able to stand up against Sai. And right now, Bike Rush is in critical response. He is in just a, conserve units. No, he's actually just going to be going around the units of Sai. He's going to be going directly for the infrastructure. He doesn't care about the army. He just cares about killing the other guy's buildings. And that is actually going to be what maybe wins him this game. And that'll be it. Sai loses the game because Bike Rush, with the worst army, killed the buildings. And that will do it for this match. Sai's so close to bringing that one out. But in the end, Bike Rush had it. Game 3, a weird one, goes to Bike Rush. Which takes us to the map Equal Opportunity in the top left-hand corner. Once again, corner, not as the top left-hand corner, but in the top left-hand corner as the Blue Allies. This is BikeRushOwnz, winning out in that game number 3. In the bottom left-hand corner, returning to his allied roots, excuse me, this is Sai. Sai doing a great job in Game 2, in Game 3, up until that last moment. And that was like, I guess that was more of a strategic choice from Bike Rush to just be like, well, I can't win the straight-up fight. Killing the refinery was a nice move, like going for the throat on the refinery, because then that did open up an opportunity, but Sai wasn't going to let that time pass for Bike Rush to be able to catch up in that way. And so Bike Rush's only real chance at victory, instead of trying to, pull out some impossible micro maneuver, which in theory would be possible, but in practicality would be nearly impossible. He just went for the kill on the buildings, and that was that. Sai going to be losing a group of riflemen here purely to the overwhelming forces of Bike Rush, and as you saw, he used his harvester to spearhead this attack, and this may actually be turning south rather quickly for Sai. Bike Rush with the rush once again, potentially going to be able to, well, no, the harvester is going for some kills, but mostly just absorbing a lot of shots, and for now the harvester does survive, so Sai actually comes out ahead in that engagement. He clears out all of the infantry, and his harvester survives. If his harvester had been lost, things would be different, but now the harvester is actually going to be potentially just hunted by this medium tank, and that's a great move by Bike Rush, finishing up the harvester and going for the kill in that case. Of course, his own harvester is losing some health to those riflemen, and that may be it for Sai. Losing the harvester when you've got $7 in the bag is just a little bit difficult. He's going to sell off the refinery. He's going to sell off... Oh, he actually had a refinery almost completed, so enough to just get it back up and running. He sells off his MCV. That gives him a little bit of a cash boost. Bike Rush hasn't done that, so he still has that opportunity to sell off his MCV, especially if he gets a second war factory or a second refinery. Either one will help him win this game. But a weird early game back and forth here by Sai, barely scraping out a little bit of a defensive edge, but then once again losing it as Bike Rush finished up that harvester. A couple of light tanks mixed into the army here, going to be going for the crush with the medium tanks, and of course Sai is getting overwhelmed. You can see that here. He's going to potentially go for the kill on that last medium tank that was low on health, and for now Sai is getting pushed back by BikeRushOwnz, and this is going to be it for Sai. He doesn't have a whole lot left, so he needs to mount an absolute miracle defense from this position. Otherwise, Bike Rush is just going to be able to stomp all over him. And unlike in that last game, which was a little bit more of a weird choice, weird play out of that game, this one was a little more direct, where just that one good engagement in the middle of the map gave Bike Rush such an advantage that he is going to be able to steamroll everything that Sai has. 3 medium tanks. Yeah, they technically could do it, but that will do it. Sai is out of this game, and Bike Rush will take the victory here. A little bit by a wider margin than that last map, but that will do it for game number 4. Let's see what happens in game number 5, which is once again on the map Equal Opportunity as the red allies in the top left-hand corner. This is BikeRushOwnz. So a little bit of a repeat on the map, but the colors are different in the bottom right-hand corner as the yellow allies. This is Sai. So these two guys getting a good feel for playing each other, and, you know, I actually didn't check the dates and times, but these were played relatively close together. There weren't any maps in between the series that these guys were playing. But, so this is sort of a one after the other kind of a situation. Barracks coming out early, lots of infantry from both players. Refineries almost exactly timed for each player, and last time Bike Rush used his harvester to kind of spearhead his attack, and he may be trying to do the same thing again. Sai this time going to be able to get some good crushes off with his harvester. He isn't able to make as much of an advantage out of it. As you can see, Bike Rush was able to get the kill on some additional units when his harvester was spearheading the attack, and Sai has been unable to do that same thing. So in this case, Bike Rush has a distinct army advantage, even though he lost a chunk to those crushes. Sai's units hiding up there in the ore. Very similar color on the mini-map to the ore, but of course just brighter. Bike Rush is going to be able to overwhelm this little group of infantry, and if there were some kind of splash damage unit, perhaps a grenadier would be a good unit of choice. Bike Rush is selling the MCV pretty early on, just a minute and a half into this game, sells his MCV and sends his engineer actually packing along to the right side of the map. There's a sell-off of one refinery, it looks like, and the MCV is still here for Sai. Bike Rush hasn't won this game just yet, and that one rifleman squad really going, one rifleman unit really going behind enemy lines in that case. Tank's going for the crush, going to be able to get the kill on a decent number of those infantry. This engineer just kind of hanging out here, somewhat exposed, and Sai is going to need to do that a couple more times to be able to overwhelm the forces of Bike Rush. And actually, 4 tanks splitting off to the left here. 5 tanks even splitting off. He needs to catch Bike Rush out in the open and just go for the kill on the tanks because that'll do so much towards evening things up. Harvester's going down, and Sai sells his MCV, gets a little bit of a cash boost to be able to continue on in this game. Gets out 1 more tank, and that may be enough to swing things into his favor. He's got the better tank numbers, so unless Bike Rush can pull something out of his sleeve, Sai should be able to continue barreling ahead in this game. There's a couple of more sell-offs from Bike Rush. He's producing a couple of extra tanks, and it looks like he may actually be at 4 tanks, which isn't quite as many as Sai. Sai selling off a couple of buildings as well, it seems like. A couple of extra infantry units, up to 5 tanks for Bike Rush, but I think it's 7 for Sai. And some of them are a little bit weak, so they could be focused down, but there's the Harvester down and out for Bike Rush, so he's going to be losing that income. He gets out an additional tank, but Sai has the Rifleman to help even things up, and they are kind of doing a bit of damage, helping Sai to overwhelm the forces of Bike Rush. There's the sell-off of the refineries, trying to squeeze out every last unit that he possibly can. It won't matter because the numbers are simply overwhelming for Sai. Nice finishing off of the couple of very weakened tanks by Bike Rush, so it's actually going to be 3-2-2, much closer than I would have anticipated given how this fight started, and Bike Rush doing everything he can to try and squeeze out every last unit, even sells off his War Factory, finishing the game with 1,000 credits, 2 tanks, one of them very badly wounded, and 5 or 6 riflemen. I guess it's just the 5 here in the middle of the map. I don't think he has anything else spread out or around, and Sai is just building a ton of riflemen. He's spending all of his cash on riflemen, which you gotta hand it to him. That's what he's got to do in this case. He does not want to leave anything to chance because it's 2 buildings versus 1, and if Bike Rush is able to sneak around, he could still win this game despite having an inferior army. And when these games get down to very low building counts, that is absolutely a threat, and it benefits Sai to play more defensively. He's going to be able to catch 1 tank out, and a 2nd tank will get surrounded and destroyed, so this should be it for Bike Rush. And Sai will take the 4th game in, or the 5th game? Yeah, the 5th game in this little match. All right, we've got, I think, 1, maybe 2 more. I'm not casting all of the games, but I'm casting 1 or 2 more of these 2 guys, and it's actually been a pretty fun series between these guys. Definitely a little bit weird, some tank spam, but hey, it's Red Alert. You should be expecting that. These are fast and furious games with not a lot of nuance to the unit control oftentimes. That will do it for this game. Let's jump into another map, which takes us to Devil Central Arena, and this one is going to be a little bit confusing because in the north, as the Blue Allies, this is Sai. And in the south, as the Yellow Allies, this is BikeRushOwnz. So yeah, these guys swapped colors on us, and that will lead to possibly maximum confusion, which is, it's always great. I love it. I love it so much. You gotta hand it to confusion. You gotta hand it to not knowing. You know, all of these things. Going for the gems right out of the gate is Bike Rush. I don't think that's bad Harvester pathing. I think that's intentional control by him in this case. In this case, maybe it would have been better to harvest the stuff that's immediately closer. But, you know, that new Harvester AI, it's just so good. You gotta love that Harvester AI, but lots of infantry, as you saw, streaming around the terrain of this map from Bike Rush. You saw a big group of infantry, and Bike Rush is going to be heading a little bit north. I don't think he's going to be able to win the game with this one swell of infantry. Sai, as you saw, he had to base crawl a little bit with that ore silo. Bike Rush did it with his barracks, so if you're wondering why that barracks was in that kind of a position. Ooh, 2 riflemen. If that had been different units, that could have been a little bit more juicy. Bike Rush has lost a big group of infantry in the north. I did miss it, but he did lose a big group of infantry there in the north. And Sai is now going to be getting permanent eyes into the base of Bike Rush, so he's going to have pretty good vision of all of those things. He's actually going to be targeting down a power plant. He may very well get the kill on the power plant. No, okay, produced a couple of riflemen to be able to deal with that. But as you can see, in just a couple of seconds, 2 riflemen actually do decent damage to a power plant. And I mean, even with the repair tool, it still is a good chunk of health away from that power plant. Of course, it costs money to repair it. More refineries going to be coming down for Sai. Second War Factory up and running for Sai. Second War Factory up and running for BikeRush. There's the MCV cell. So if you're wondering, maybe I should MCV cell. Well, wait until you've got 2 refineries and 2 war factories. I know on the Command & Conquer subreddit, which oftentimes is a place of the most broadband, worst kind of humor, but also produces a number of gems. Someone actually did a breakdown of how additional war factories or production facilities affects your build times. Big attack coming in here for BikeRush, and Sai doing what he can to stand against this. By the way, this game speed is faster, not fast, so this is even less ability to control this stuff precisely than they would normally have. BikeRush going to be turning around, cutting and running. It looks like the numbers are starting to favor Sai, but part of that is some of these tanks are very low on health and can be easily eliminated by BikeRush, which is what we see there. Reinforcements for BikeRush coming in, allowing them to kill a Harvester or 2. Could potentially go for infrastructure after getting that Harvester kill, and Sai is going to be able to push BikeRush back. Ooh, BikeRush picking up a couple of last-minute kills just to get the weakened tanks off of the field. And as you can see, BikeRush, he's got a couple of tanks, which if all of the damage would have been focused on one tank, would have been dead. But they're actually spread out a little bit. 2 pillboxes on the front line. They do help you push away your opponents. They do help you stabilize your front line, but they don't do all that much. And when the engagements don't happen near your base defenses, they don't benefit you at all. I don't know if this is actually a wise move by Sai to engage this far out. He may actually need to be playing it a little bit closer to home, a little bit closer to the chest. And, well, now the tanks are going to be up near the base defenses, but guess what? Sai doesn't have the numbers that he had just a moment ago. And fast and furious as these tanks go for one another, BikeRush overwhelming the forces of Sai, and he may not be able to kill Sai just yet, although he may be able to eke out a win with just reinforcements on the reinforcement path there, as these pillboxes are going to be going down, and it's actually going to be 4 tanks versus 2. And BikeRush may have done it. Once again, he's got some low health tanks out here on the map. Sai doesn't have a lot of cash in the bank. BikeRush has more, which means reinforcements will be more regular for BikeRush. And this is just BikeRush has more money, BikeRush spent more money, and BikeRush has more tanks killing his opponent's base. And that will do it. BikeRush claims this game as well. Let's jump into one final map between these two guys. Once again, we are on Devil Central Arena, but this time the game speed has been set to fast instead of faster. So we're 1 notch up from normal instead of 2. In the north as the yellow allies, this is BikeRushOwnz. And in the south as the blue allies, this is Sai. So they're sticking with their swapped colors now that it's blue versus yellow in the opposite direction as it was for the rest of the games. But their spawning positions are reversed, so now BikeRush is up top and Sai is down below. Splits his infantry one way, then the other, first to the left, then to the right. And as you can see, BikeRush first refinery gets dropped in the main base, and then probably an ore silo here-ish to be able to then build on the low ground. Whereas, you know, the lack of symmetry in these maps leads Sai to have the advantage of faster refinery on the low ground, faster access to more gems. In the last game, maybe that was what gave BikeRush the advantage. Maybe it was just some other decisions that Sai made, but we will have to see because things have been reversed for this final game in this impromptu, unofficial series between these two players, which has provided some pretty entertaining games. Not necessarily every single one of them was the peak of play or the peak of strategy, but they've all had a bit of a fun element to them, sometimes a little bit unexpected. But this is a significant group of infantry. This is more than enough riflemen to quickly overwhelm. Ooh, going for the crush as well, meaning that Sai could potentially put on some big pressure himself. So they're going to be potentially pressuring each other, and BikeRush may actually be wanting to just walk directly into the main base of Sai. That may be the most vulnerable place for him to go. MCV cell for BikeRush, so it's double war factory, single refinery for BikeRush, and he's just going light tanks as his production choice, which light tanks do produce extremely quickly, and it looks like he was able to clean up one harvester. Yeah, it looks like Sai lost his harvester, so BikeRush may actually be able to pull something out here. He should be able to just crush all of this infantry relatively quickly. Reinforcements going to be coming in for BikeRush, but they're not going to be enough. One war factory does still stand, one refinery does still stand, but Sai also has enough cash to produce a harvester or even sell off. No, he actually sold us his MCV, so he's not going to be rebuilding the refinery. He's not rebuilding the harvester either. I guess he could be now, but Sai better get something back online relatively soon. He's going to be pushing up in the north. It's 3 tanks versus 2 reinforcements for BikeRush going to be coming in. Sai going to be able to get overwhelmed, as Sai cuts off 2 tanks to the north, 1 to the left, 1 to the right, and he does indeed go into the main base of BikeRush, as BikeRush is himself entering into the main base of Sai. There's the sell-off of everything in the main. Sai is looking for that cash boost. He's not actually built a harvester. He's just going for tanks. He's going for attacking units. He's not interested in that thing called economy or production. He's just interested in having stuff that kills his opponent. And in this case, it's 2 tanks versus 1, but it's soon to be 2 tanks versus 1 in the opposite direction. Sai not using his opportunity of superior firepower to kill BikeRush's tank. I think that was just a mistake there, that he did not kill BikeRush's tank in that case. Light tanks now here in good numbers for BikeRush are going to be standing up against Sai and trying to do what they can to turn the tide. Sai marching further north, ever on against the onslaught of BikeRush to face him here near his own main base. 1 medium tank as the reinforcement for Sai, and he is going to be able to join up with his buddies, but BikeRush may be able to just overwhelm the tanks of Sai. And man, those light tanks, they fire so quickly, they do a surprising amount of damage. The war factory is going to be going down for BikeRush. He's going to be trying to... So he loses the war factory. I actually don't know who called that game, because Sai has the much weaker army, but I don't know if BikeRush knew that. Yeah, BikeRush should have known that. So BikeRush should have won this game, but at the same time, BikeRush is the one who was being attacked and who just lost his war factory when the game ended. So, Sai almost certainly would have lost this game. But did BikeRush realize that, or did BikeRush leave the game somewhat accidentally, thinking he was further behind than he really was? In any case, Sai should have lost this game. Whether or not that would have actually happened, we will never know. And I think BikeRush took this match. I think Sai was the one who left, but, you know, who knows? That will do it for this game, for this series. I hope you enjoyed these games and these maps. Hopefully they were entertaining for you. Thank you all very much for watching, and this is Sybert, signing out.